We'll start off with thanks for viewing this video on the Anti-IONS website. It is with a heavy heart that I have to do this, but I feel compelled, kind of pushed back into a corner with no other options, but to bring this information to the public light. So for the last several years, I've crossed paths with ion scientists who I feel conduct themselves in an unethical and illegal manner many times. And it is a disservice to the scientific community in general, humanity overall, because science helps everybody. And what I'm hoping is if you're watching this, you will review all the information on the website, sign the petitions that we have listed, and aid us in bringing justice to the guilty on this situation. And so for this video, we're going to be discussing Adam Curry, who's a consciousness researcher. And also here is a moderator who will remain anonymous, who is familiar with the situation and will be sort of acting on behalf of the public just to offer clarification or ask questions as we move through this. So moderator, are you there?
I'm here. Yep. Thank you.
Okay. And so feel free to jump in with any questions or clarifications as we move through this.
Sounds good.
All right. So in 2011 was really the first time when I crossed paths with all this consciousness research stuff. 2012 is when I started doing my own research. And right about that time is when I contacted S.C.R.E.A.M, and they told me that one of their team members, Adam Curry, had just moved to the San Francisco Bay Area where I was, and that I should link up with him. So I ended up doing that. And at the beginning, everything seemed all right. I was new to this. I really didn't know a whole lot about it, although I had a very strong background in similar technologies and data. So it was a very comfortable area for me. And I was pretty excited about going into it because it was an area of science that I thought that I could really have something to contribute to. And I got into it initially because I was looking for ways I was curating shows, and I was working on curating a show around the concept of consciousness, a collective consciousness, and figuring out a way that art movements happened, and like surrealism, impressionism, stuff like that, modern day art movements. And that was just always being a gallery curator. That was always an interest of mine. That led me to questions of consciousness. And when we initially met, I think we had a lot in common. But right out of the get-go, I could kind of see that Adam, what would you say, underestimated my abilities, like he does everybody's around him, which I can see now. And where I had a very advanced experience in this, he kind of looked at me as a novice or a newbie, and at the same time did help me get started in all of this. The first equipment, the first REGs I got from him, and I started my experiments where he was even invited. I had a space at the War Memorial Veterans Building. We had a little pop-up museum in there that was permanent for several months. And he came by there, saw that. And we were kind of just off and on. We didn't, unfortunately, at the time, he wasn't the type, it didn't seem like, to collaborate. He would show up and do something or have comments, but he wouldn't want to actually collaborate on anything. Even though I was setting up, working on stuff that he was working on as well, he kind of more took it like I was contributing to his work rather than we were a collaboration. And this went on for quite a while.
So he was kind of treating you as an assistant rather than a colleague, in other words.
Kind of. Yeah, it's not like he didn't like ask me to do things for him, and he wasn't doing stuff as himself. So it wasn't like he was asking me to do things, but it was more like he was the authority.
Okay.
He believed he was the authority in the situation. And even after I had few successful experiments, he still didn't, he never, and yeah, I guess this was just, it was always kind of surprising, would never necessarily want to specifically work together on something. I remember one of the, because I was working on what the problem was, and that was why these things behave the way they do, and that was this the electron tunneling thing. But he was working on being rich and famous, you know. And I remember in one of our last conversations in San Francisco, he said, "Well, I was talking to him about the art shows and how compelling they could be, how what would you say, how they could really connect people with art in a more profound manner." And his response was, he said, "I only work on projects that have global impact."
And what year was this?
Huh?
What year was this?
This had to have been, this was right before he moved to LA. So it was like right 2016, 2015, right in there.
Okay.
Uh, was it the last conversation? Now, so he's got a major sort of ego issue, and I've been accused of having a big ego as well. But I think if you, anybody that ever succeeds at anything must have an ego that's going to rub some people the wrong way. And what I think, what it really came to Adam was like, I had a solid model and an idea that I was working towards that was original in thought, hadn't read it anywhere else, and that's something that he was lacking. He didn't have that ability, and I created things just right off the fly, and I think he found them intimidating. So, for example, uh, AIM, the idea of AIM 10 lights was something I thought of right away. You know, I didn't have access to the equipment. There wasn't any really available at the time. And so it was an idea. Like, I told him about AIM within weeks of meeting him, you know, when I came up with the idea. I'm sorry, I might have even mentioned it the first time we met, but it was still a compelling idea for me. But for him, it's not an idea if it's not his, right? So I could see even early on there was a division happening that shouldn't have happened, because this organization, not organization, he was with S.C.R.E.A.M, but the community in general is all about inclusiveness, diversity, freedom of thought. On the surface, you see that, but when you get to the underlying, it's kind of just the opposite. And so there was, well, there's always been a housing crisis in San Francisco, but I went through a what would you call it? Yeah, it was kind of a ridiculous situation, but the people bought out. My apartment got bought out in San Francisco, and I had to unexpectedly pick up and move everything. And I ended up finding this fantastic workspace in Oakland, and it was a studio space that was nice, in a nice giant warehouse. We had an 8,000 square foot art gallery that there were monthly exhibits going on. And so it fit perfect for me being a curator. I had a big space to show, and a place to do my work and more research. And so when I moved in there, this would have been, I guess, 2015 in the fall. And I was planning to do my first show that next February. So it was like a February 1st show. And right during this time as well, I was having some health issues. And the day after the February show, I needed to get a bone marrow biopsy for some cancer issues I'm having from my time in the Gulf War, Navy. And so I'm dealing with like a lot of these personal things as well, but simultaneously trying to do consciousness research in this public art domain, art community. And like I said, in Oakland, there's a first Friday every month, like a big art thing. This was in the before times, and people would gather. And so every the first Friday of every month, we would also have an exhibit. And then there was stuff that would happen in between. So I had a big space to operate in and a great place to do research. And this was kind of a one of the first times that I found that Adam directly kind of screwed me, in that as soon as I got set up, I sent him a message saying, hey, this was, I thought we had a good relationship at this time. And I said, hey, come over and check this out. He came over to the space, took a look through it. He's like, oh, wow. And then he told me about a project he was beginning to work on for San Francisco, where he was going to build these structures like a giant mine lamp, basically. And I was like, oh, that sounds great. And it was a half, let's do it together, and a half not. But he just kind of just told it to me. But there was no expressed invitation. Hey, we should collaborate on this. And what it turned out is we were walking through all this place, and he's like, wow, are there any woodworkers here? It's like, oh yeah, there's tons. I know a couple that are here. And he's like, yeah, I need somebody to build these pods. And I'm like, okay, well, let's just chat. So we said we were going to chat. We never did. He never called me back. So I let it go. And the project for Adam came and went, and I never got an invitation to even attend it, nothing to do with it. And apparently it wasn't really an experiment. It was him with a girl building 3 big mine lamps that people could stand in, and they ended up on Market Street. Nobody really understood it. It was kind of, they looked good from the inside, not a fully realized project, I think, but I never actually saw it, because I didn't get an invitation to any of the events around it. But in a later conversation, when I was talking to Adam, he said that he basically called, instead of working with me on it, he called my studio, where my studio was, and just got a direct referral from them, from where I was, and completely left me out of the whole thing. And so that was the first real indicator that there was some sneakiness going on, I thought. And I should be, careful on the trust factor with this. And so that was kind of the first thing. Shortly after that, he had moved to LA to work on the, Entanglement app. And didn't really get involved with him or talk to him too much after that. We chatted a few times, but nothing ever other came back. And he was going to leave town. Now, right about this time, also at the first event that I did, it was in an art gallery in San Francisco, Quantum Curation. I introduced Adam, who was there. It was a great experiment, by the way. I introduced Adam to somebody who was a fellow DJ at a radio station that I had a radio show called Scream for Peace. And it was about consciousness, and I was actually doing research at the radio show, as well as exploring the nature of consciousness and reality once a week for 2 hours. That's what we did. Adam was actually a guest on the show a few times. And so during this period, things got really weird for me. This Robinson guy started trying to get me to help him with his business. He wanted to take his business legit, because he was just doing sort of construction stuff. And my work at the time, my vision for it was the ideal place would have been installing it into smart homes, people who were putting in lighting systems into homes. This would be ideal for that. And so the initial discussions was around that happening. And at this time is when I was at the shows, when I first invited them to, or I introduced him to Adam. So they knew each other at this period. And he expressed during this period of, after I'd moved into the studio in the first few months, Robinson took a keen interest in the specifics of what I was doing to a level that was just kind of unusual, where he wanted to know every little detail, and it wasn't, and I figured out later it wasn't for him. And it seemed to me like he was just milking me for the information to pass on to somebody else. And I think that person was Adam. And what leads me to believe that is that the situation that we went in that during this period was very difficult. This Robinson guy kind of came into my life and just created a topsy-turvy situation. And he had there was another woman who had a studio a few doors down. She and I became friends and started collaborating on little side art shows. And she knew who this Robinson person was because he had actually was involved at the studio space. And so we were all crossing paths off and on. And eventually, right about this time, there is what I'm about to describe as involves me and two other girls. Is he basically trying to get me to kidnap and rape a girl under the guise of fulfilling a sexual fantasy? And we'll just call this the target, Jane Doe target. And he tried to convince me and this other, the artist friend, let's just call her the artist, to and we all knew each other. And what he said, he told me was that she had been having rape fantasies about me, and that she wanted me to, or somebody else. She said she wanted, I was one of a couple of guys that she was open to this happening to kidnap her off the street and basically rape her. And so what they wanted, what this Robinson guy was trying to do was get me and the artist girl to participate in this. And he was sending us text messages, talking to us about how great it would be and how fun it would be. And like, no, it doesn't sound like fun at all. I'm not into that stuff anyway. But at the same time, I was like, oh, somebody's having a fantasy about me. That's flattering. And she's a pretty girl, and we got along well. And so it was like, yeah, that's interesting, but no, not gonna do it. And he was just Robinson was adamantly trying to get us to the point where he sent us both text messages, me and the artist girl, saying, I know where she's gonna be at this time, and it's got to be today. So I'm coming to get you right now. It got to that point. And I just said, no, I'm not going to do it. So it was kind of difficult going through that, kind of just a pain. But at the same time, I kind of just dismissed it as a fantasy that wasn't going to happen. Didn't really take it that serious. And then a couple of several weeks later, or no, it wasn't several, a couple of weeks later, this is really what kind of pushed it over edge for me, say, wow, this was really serious, is that at the same time, so during this period, Robinson was also, again, milking me for as much, trying to get information on what my thoughts were on the hypercube, the concepts behind it, the underlying principles, whereas he was a sheetrocker. That was his job. I mean, he didn't have the computer background at all. And so at the time, it seemed a little unusual. I thought he was just wanting to find out more to help me. But again, I don't think that was the case. And what happened next was, like, I had this show in February 1st, first Friday in February. I guess this would have been 2016. And he, I'm losing train of thought. Had the art show. Oh, okay. So like leading up to the art show, Robinson had asked me, I was helping him to manage some of his client finances, and he asked me to do something that I wasn't going to do. He said, give me this client's money. I need to do buy some equipment or do something that was not on part of the plan. So it was like, it was taking the client's money and using it for something else that it wasn't supposed to be used for. I said, no, we're not going to do that, because that's why he had asked me to help him. And in the previous weeks before that, he hadn't been paying me for the work that I had been helping with. And what he said to me was, oh, just pay yourself out of the deposit funds and I'll get it later. And I wasn't going to do that, but I also did not tell him I wasn't going to do that. I was just like, okay, whatever. And I was just transferring money, doing what, keeping the client's best interest in mind. But Robinson he thought I was taking money out of that account, paying myself and spending it. And so on the Saturday, was it the Saturday? No, it was the Thursday, Friday. No, it was the Friday morning of this big event it was my first show, and at this place. And Robinson had asked me again for this money. I said, no. I said, and he's like, fine. So what does he do? He calls the client. Now, keep in mind, believing me, when I told him no, I wasn't going to give it to him, he probably thought because I didn't have it. And he wanted to really find out exactly how much money was in that account, because he was under the assumption that I had been spending it. And he could have just asked me, but he didn't. What he did do was contact the client and told the client that I was holding his money and probably spent it and wasn't going to give it to him. So the client shows up completely angry, thinking that I just stole thousands of dollars for him for his home that he was supposed to use on his home remodel. And I still have the email address if we ever need to contact this guy again. His name was Logan. We'll just leave it at that. And he was very angry. But I told him like what was going on, and he demanded a refund. So I said, okay, here you go. I'm going to send it to you. I kept my management fee and said, okay, I'm sending it to you. And I had it all, and I sent it to him. And I think it was probably the last conversation I had with Robertson when he's like, what's going on? I told him I gave the client his money back. He's like, what? And he was like, you had the money, or said something towards that effect. I'm like, yeah, I had it. And he was completely shocked that I was able to just that I had the client's money for him. And I think this is another good reason why it's a good idea not to tell people how much money you actually have. And so as a general rule, I'll never do that. Yeah, I just learn not to do that. And so this kind of thing, when people think you're broke, that's when their true nature comes out. Because people tend to treat other people poorly if they believe they are superior in financial ability. Not everybody does that, but a lot of people do. So I just kind of have a rule is like, keep your finances private. Don't tell anybody everything. And this was definitely paid off in my favor in this situation. So the client walked away with all of his money, wasn't happy that he had to go through all this. But then that made me realize this was serious, because that's illegal. If you take a client's money and spend it on something else, that's illegal. You could literally go to jail for that. And so what I felt like at that moment was this guy was trying to set me up for something serious. And so I cut him out of my life, told him to stay away from me. And that was kind of it. But it wasn't because of the kidnapping thing. It was because of the financial issue. That was really it. And then over the next several weeks, all of this information, all these little things that didn't really make sense were coming to light, and still not quite making sense about what would they have to gain from this. And what it came down to, obviously, was just a complete sociopath. But I found out later through other associates, he kind of prided himself, he told people that he knew that he wanted to be a hitman. He wanted to do things for money. And from there, I distanced myself from him, but I didn't make any connection to Adam at this time. And it wasn't until a few months later when I was one of the sponsors or uh, featured community members from Transformative Technology Conference that happens in Palo Alto. You're familiar with that, moderator?
Yes, indeed I am.
Okay. Just checking in.
Yeah, I had to unmute myself,
Is
but I'm
everything
here.
sounding all right?
Yeah, yeah, everything's good over
Feel free to
here.
jump in for clarification or if anything like that. I'm kind of just meandering.
Okay. Yeah, no, I've been listening. I think you've been pretty clear so far.
Okay. Okay.
Yeah.
So I go to this transformative tech conference, and now uh, since the time I had last saw Adam, he had moved out of town, moved to LA, and Isabel and I were working together. She's the one that got me into the transformative tech, and and it would have been, you would have think it would have been a moment of positivity. You know, the this community is supposedly supposed to be what? It's supposed to be about community openness, scientific exploration, and coming together as one. You hear that a lot. And so I really hadn't even spoken to Adam. I didn't even know he was actually going to be at this conference. But since the last time I had seen him, we had had some success at American Steel and doing all the shows. I had some fantastic experiments. And at this event is a place where a lot of financiers go, investors looking for these types of things to invest in. And one of the people that was there was an investor from Southern California, whom I had given a personal tour of my studio, and she had actually invested in one of Adam's projects, I had found out. And she was investing into others. She was interested in investing in me. And at the end of our conversation, she's like, "Oh, this is perfect. This is exactly what I'm looking for." And then she left and never heard from her again. And I believe, she probably talked to Adam about me and got some bad stuff because she was at this conference and was completely incapable of even looking me in the eye or talking to me. So whatever Adam told her was completely ridiculous and not very good. And what leads me to believe that is his behavior at this conference. Because when I walked up to him, it should have been like a friendly reunion, you would think, and he should have had some positive things to say about our success. But the only thing he actually said to me was something hostile, like, "What are you doing here? And this is my community. These are my people." Like I didn't belong. And throughout the week that day, now keep in mind that I had an installation at this event. I wasn't just a name on the wall. I had an installation. I was doing stuff there, and it specifically had to do with the technology that Adam was trying to raise money for. Now, this is my opinion, and I know other people do agree with me. In this particular area of technology that we're working in, I am one of the most experienced people in the world, and and I've done dozens. At this time, I had done probably 100 experiments, dozens at least, and a couple of pretty good ones, big ones. And
Moderator agrees.
pardon me.
Moderator agrees with you being one of the most experienced in the world with this technology.
Okay, thank you. And so you would think that there would have been something really positive to discuss, but he was completely hostile, and people's attitudes at this conference towards me changed on a dime. And I couldn't figure it out. After the conference, I was a little flabbergasted, didn't even talk to Adam. After that one word, he just avoided me the whole time and then was gone. And there were there were other relationships there that were kind of just ended, like with S.C.R.E.A.M. So I just think Adam was talking shit about me. But the level of hostility that I received him just seemed completely out of place. And then it hit me. I had this flash came into my brain, and you know, those moments of memory where you're like, oh, those epiphany moments. And I remembered months before, right during the period when Robinson was putting me through the paces of this faux rape fantasy, I remembered that I caught Adam having exchanging text messages with Robinson, the sociopath. And it was about money. And I was like, why are you talking to him about money? What the fuck would you have any reason to be talking to Adam about anything, let alone money? And he made some stupid thing up saying, oh, I was just asking Adam if he could give me a better deal on the mine lamps. And like, why would you do that? That was just a completely ridiculous answer. And so I kind of let it go at that moment. Why would he do that? And then I started doing some research, and I looked up kidnapping and rape and the laws behind it, and saw that just planning a kidnapping is illegal, even if you don't go through with it. Just if there's a serious plan to kidnap somebody, that in itself is conspiracy to kidnap and is a federal offense. I think it's federal, it might be state, I can't remember, but it's definitely against the law. And so I wanted to file a police report against him for this because I figured out kind of what was going on. And I went back and spoke with the target girl, and I asked her about it. And she said she never had any rape fantasies about me. This was all brand new to her. She's like, no. And the only thing she had ever said to him about that was that she wanted to learn to defend herself. That was the only thing she could think about that would even remotely come to close, which is nothing to do with rape fantasies. So the whole thing that he put me and the other artist girl through was completely fabricated. And what I believe was going to happen was, let's just say we had gone through with it, and we believe, let's just say we were crazy, rapey, kinky people, and we wanted to do this. And it would have been me and a girl swinging up in a van and pulling a blonde girl into it and then doing our thing with her. So imagine if we had done that. Imagine we had had hoods on or something, and we pulled this girl into the van. That's it. You kidnap somebody. It doesn't even matter if you rape them. Once you pull somebody, if you pulled somebody into the van, it would have been kidnapping. And what I believe what would have happened is we would have maybe have tried to go through the process, and Robinson would have just called the police. If the police showed up and they asked me and the other girl, did you have consent to do this? And we said no, but we thought it was this XYZ going on. It's like, doesn't matter. You're still guilty. And we would have been arrested. And so I believe that they were trying to frame me for this case to get me arrested, discredit me in the scientific community, and then basically take all my research and all my ideas and apply it to this out. Nobody would believe me. Nobody would care what I had to say about anything if I was a convicted rapist.
So in other words, they were Adam Curry, you believe, orchestrated this to get you out of the way.
Yeah, the sociopath that was there enjoyed this. So I wouldn't doubt it if it was just a discussion where, hey, I can help you get Leo out of the way, and the sociopath enticed him to do it. I wouldn't doubt that. So I don't know the specifics, but I do believe that Adam primed the sociopath on which questions to ask me and get the specifics, and basically try to take me out of the way.
So in other words, you don't know if Adam necessarily specifically said, hey, orchestrate framing Leo for kidnap and rape, but you do think that he made some kind of comment to entice him to get you out of the way, whatever it took. And
Right.
that's what it came to.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay.
And yes. So again, I know for a fact. Now, for those watching the video who maybe have not looked at all the information here, if you go to the petitions and complaints and scroll down to the racketeering on this page, maybe if you scroll down, it'll be there. There are links to this guy being arrested, and he is currently sitting in jail in the Philippines, last we knew, and on human trafficking. So I filed a police report against this guy. And what I believe. So I put in
Alderman, right?
I believed it was Adam Curry who was behind it. And
Alderman is the one who got arrested in the Philippines.
correct. Yeah.
And Adam Curry, who
Alderman.
we believe is behind it, is the one where you filed the police reports, correct?
Correct.
Okay.
Yeah. And so if you click around the website, you'll see links where you can download police reports, and you can even download communications that I've had throughout the years with various people on this website. And so I filed this police report, and I kind of expected nothing to happen. Because I don't know, it's just like, I just didn't, but the police took it serious. Oakland Police Department was very good at this, and they looked at it, and they could see that it was we had it. And again, this wasn't just me complaining about this. There were 2 women involved in this who would be willing to testify and support me in all this. And they told the police, like, yeah, this is real. And so they went out and started investigating it. And what happened was, what I believe happened is that this guy got the idea that I was pursuing this in a very real manner, because they went to his house. I got his address somehow, can't remember, and they went to his house and did that. One of the other girls got kind of spooked and left the state, moved to a different state because she didn't want to deal with him primarily. And the other girl now has long, but she stuck around for about a year and eventually left. But both of them saw that this was a very unstable, crazy person. Like, and he was serious. He was capable of doing serious harm to people, and I didn't realize it at the time. And so they were genuinely scared. And as I wouldn't say scared, but I'm definitely concerned, because this guy ran with some pretty shady people. And after the police started visiting him, word on the street was he decided to move. He left the country, and he closed everything down, because I was pursuing it, and the police were helping me, and I was working towards getting him arrested when he decided to bolt, left town. So there was really nothing else I could do if he was gone. Through social media and through other people, through the sort of the grapevine, I got notified that he was going to Vietnam. And considering what he had just done to me, I realized the type of person he was. And if I spent some time in the Navy, stationed in Japan, and I went all through Asia. And so I kind of saw the sex trafficking that was going on in various parts of the world, and knew that if he was going there, it would be for reasons to get involved into that. No matter what he was doing, there would be something bad going on. So I sent letters. I'm going to post some of them on the website. Some of them were just forms to fill out, but I sent the Vietnamese consulates in Vietnam and in San Francisco messages that this alderman guy was planning on moving to this country. And I felt that if he did, he would be involved in some form of sex worker exploitation, something like that. And I just sent them all the information I had on him. He had some social media accounts that were not associated with his name that I sent, and anything I had. And I just said, be careful. And within a year, I got a call. It was like 7 months later. I got a call from one of the other from the Target girl, ecstatically happy that this guy just got busted. And he was busted in the Philippines. Uh, the details are a little harsh or a little difficult to find. There's a lot of articles on the web you can find about this, but he was busted in the Philippine airport with plans to create a kiddie porn movie called 50 Shades of Grey with kids, basically. And he was planning on kidnapping kids and making this movie with them. And they found him through social media posts and various other things. And one of the articles even said that even though he was flying into the country, he'd already done something, and three young girls were rescued. I don't know what the details on that, just one of the articles did say that. So this guy was knee deep into some really, really bad stuff. And when I saw all this stuff come out, I mean, obviously I was happy he was arrested, but a couple of days after he gets arrested, I get a threatening message from one of his colleagues, basically threatening to beat my face in. To me, it was a veiled message, basically telling me to be quiet and not do exactly what I'm doing right now, to out them, to bring this to the public. As far as I know, this case is still an open Department of Homeland Security case. Even though the guy's in the Philippines, he has not stood trial here. He was still an American citizen. So whenever they're done with him there, they're going to ship him here and he's going to stand trial here. That's the latest I know.
What was
And
the
what I
threat?
want to do, go ahead.
What was the threat that you were sent a few days after he was arrested, and who was it by?
It was by his partner, his friend that he, did business with, who was a former Marine and who's been known, from what I understand, to hurt people for money. And he sent me a message that said JA. JA is, I think it's a military term. I didn't use it in the military, but well, it's often used there. JA is a term, basically means to beat somebody's face in a fit of rage, just to go ballistic on them. And so I took that as a threat of violence towards me. There was no, and it was delivered through the game Words for Friends. So even though I had this guy blocked on Facebook, somehow he was able to send me like a game request, and that was his first play.
And just to be clear, this guy who sent you that message is not connected to the consciousness community.
Correct.
Okay.
Correct. But he was part of this group. So for example, in one of the events that I had, this was at the World's Fair in San Francisco, World's Fair Nano. He showed up to the event, stood like within visual sight of me, and just stood there staring at us, our event, for like an hour. Didn't say a word, just sat there and stared and then left. That kind of weird stuff. He was eventually, oh, I haven't mentioned this. So when all of this happened, when Robinson left the country, this guy had a studio at American Steel and eventually was kicked out, I think, for, I can't even remember what it is. It was something drug related or something, but they would, I haven't posted this on the website, but they set up a studio right next to mine to keep an eye on me. And I have a photograph of Robinson before he was arrested, like when all this was going, like staring at me from above. And so it all sounds bizarre, but when you look at it on paper and actually see it, it kind of makes sense to me. As it was happening, it was very bizarre. And it's one of those things where you have to put the pieces together after the fact. But it's something that's never left and is still going on. And so after this event, and we're going to make a separate thing for Mikey, but after this event, after this guy was arrested and I figured out it was Mikey, or figured out Adam was probably connected with it, by the time this had happened, I was already involved with consciousness hacking. And so even though this is an isolated event with Adam, or I thought it was at the time, in the following years, I would have nothing as, well, I guess, I don't know, nothing as overtly illegal as this, but similar situations appeared as far as conflict with people in particular related to IONS. And so my objective in this is to just see that justice is done and the truth comes to the table. And the only way I see that happening is if a legal entity is involved in doing this, either through civil case or criminal case. Obviously, we're talking about kidnapping and rape. This is a criminal issue. And since the guy's overseas, it's really difficult to get anything done. If we get enough signatures on this petition, I'll start a fundraising campaign, because I'm guessing it's going to cost around $50,000 to hire an attorney to get this prosecuted. So did that sound like a reasonable explanation of why I believe Adam is involved in this?
Absolutely. Yeah, I think that's fairly comprehensive. And yeah, that really did a good job at giving your side of the story.
Good, good. I'm glad you felt that way. And if you look on the website again, there will be links. And we'd just like to ask, if you think that this is warrants investigation, sign the petitions to have IONS. There's 3 organizations involved in this: the Institute of Noetic Science, the Foundation for Mind Being Research, and consciousness hacking. They all 3 operate under the guise of nonprofit status and scientific organizations and educational. So to me, that means that they have both an ethical and a legal obligation to practice the scientific method and to not disregard data that doesn't meet with their bias. And that is what's happening throughout all of this. And that is consistent with Adam and everybody else in here. And what I mean by that is that if you have information that will contribute to a model or an invention or really anything, that the method is to analyze the data and either reject it because it's bad or integrate it because it's good. And what's happening throughout this whole thing is people want to take my data and basically make it their own and push me out of the way so they can then integrate it with theirs. And I do believe this has happened. This hasn't happened, but I believe it would happen. Whereas if you got me in the same room with a bunch of, let's say, the people that invested in Adam's app, the entanglement app, they would probably hear a lot of me into the words he was saying. So if I show up with a more comprehensive, Adam even told me this once. He says, I can't have you around because when you're around, nobody pays attention to me. And it's the reason is because I simply know more about this technology and I'm able to speak about it in a both philosophically understandable way and a technical way. And that's not something Adam had. Adam was a repeater. And basically from what I saw working with, he would just repeat what other people have said in his own words. And was like a lot of scientists or people who think they're scientists believe that they have a domain of ideas and intelligence that's above other people. And they have to maintain that. They have to maintain that above all. And the way they do that is not by elevating themselves, is by bringing other people down around them. And so Adam had a chance to work with me. And I think he saw that if he did, he would not be the leader in the group because he just didn't have the ability. And so he decided that it wasn't just going to happen. And he didn't want me to succeed beyond him because he was supposed to be the person who does all this stuff. And I just don't even know what, I guess I don't really understand what motivates some people to do the things they do. But when you have the opportunity to bring other people in to make whatever you're working on better, there would seem to be the right thing to do. You would always want to be in that. Most companies are out there; they're always recruiting. But I can see from this that Adam, just if he was going to be involved in something, he would have to be at the top, and didn't want anybody else to either be the one focus of attention or actually doing the work. So do you want to add anything? I know, moderator, you have some background. Do you want to add anything with your experiences with Adam? Or would you rather like to leave it off?
Yeah. Well, I suppose I would just say that, I kind of find it a bit ironic that Adam is held as the, what would you call it?
Wonder Boy.
What's that?
Wonder Boy.
Yeah, he's looked up to by a lot of people in the community that are very high up. He's held in very high regard. Everybody, everywhere I go, people speak very highly of him about, the things he's accomplished and all of that. But, to my knowledge, he has kind of screwed over his investors on the Entanglement app and also on this Netflix show that he was gonna create. Now, I'm not sure. I don't know how far along that was, whether that was a done deal or not. But what I do know is that it seems like he kind of has a pattern of not following through the things he starts. We can see that with the Entanglement app, with that show, and really just in general. I've spoken to some others in the community who have said, it's like, yeah, like, that doesn't surprise me. He hasn't followed through on anything, but yet they still hold him in high regard, and it's kind of astonishing. So that's all I was going to say on that.
And I think that does kind of speak to an overall superficialness in the consciousness research community, because people are more concerned about how they're perceived than how it really is. And I think it's the ongoing quest for funding, accolades, for attention, for achievement, that kind of thing.
Well, it's that kind of makes me think about the issues. I mean, having a small community is great in some ways because you get to know everybody in it and all. But that also means that, if there's only so much funding that goes around, there's going to be naturally a lot of competition. Even if the community is based on, love, compassion, and all of that, well, that might be offset by the fact that it's, everybody's in competition with each other to get funding, and yeah, that's kind of what I've learned in the last couple of years, is that, there are great people in the community, but there are also people who appear to be what they're not. And, and everywhere we go, it's a matter of being careful.
Definitely. Yeah. I think it's more often that people appear to be what they're not rather than what they are. We all have that, veil or that face we put out. We have the public, then we have our friends, then we have our family. All of those are different personas. And some people aren't happy with what they have, and they want to elevate themselves above what they've actually accomplished. And I think that's what we see here is Adam there was a desperate attempt to take me out of the picture, and it backfired. And now he's facing, for the last several years, they know I'm out doing this. This website is brand new. I've been trying to bring this to resolve in a quiet manner for the last several years, and it's just nothing works. I'm kind of at a loss as to what else to do. So let's go ahead and wrap this one up. Um,